Hi everyone, it's James here. Today I'm joined by Raj Bhatt. So Raj, thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me, James.
I met Raj a number of years ago now on a 3-day property training course. Raj was very motivated, very keen, wanted to develop his portfolio, and has taken absolutely massive action since then. Was it about 2014, 2015?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so
Yeah.
quite all that now. Yeah,
Long time ago. Raj, do you want to tell our listeners a little bit about, obviously, maybe your background pre-property?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so yeah, thanks for the lovely introduction, James. So yeah, so as my name, Raj Bhatt. So prior to property, so I was very much working in the corporate world. So I'm based out in northwest London and working primarily in central London, really. So it's very much my background is very much project manager, IT, working in corporate companies, so all blue chip companies across various sectors, private, public companies, including banking. I did buy my first property along the way, pretty much from amateur investor, close to where I am in northwest London. And to be honest, it was making a bit of a loss.
You had the experience of your one buy to let. Was it kind of an awareness of going, I'm possibly not doing something quite right here if it's making me a loss, or was it kind of just hungry to learn more and see what the different avenues?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, so the one I bought was, it was, I probably did everything you could have done wrong, really, but didn't know any better because I didn't really have many in that point.
Have you still got that one today?
Still got it there, but it's performing now.
I was going to say, it's probably, I'm sure if it's in London, it's probably shot up in value since, over the last 8-9 years, and
no, exactly,
turned itself around. What were your kind of first steps as a professional investor then, Raj?
Yeah, that's good question, James. So what I essentially did, obviously, as James alluded to, we went through sort of a property training course, and that really just elevated through that property training. Obviously, having the training and the mentorship there, that just opened my mind to a whole different mind of strategies. Rubbing shoulders with other people who are obviously doing other things. In my world, it's sort of I've done the best I possibly can, but then meeting other people who are possibly younger than you, doing more bigger things than you, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, wow, okay, so I'm a small, you think I was a big fish in a small pond. I then realised I'm actually a small fish in a big pond, which was great because I took it as a challenge. But the first steps I did was really just knuckle down on the training, get my head around some of the key strategies, understand all the different ones, sort of HMOs, credit finance, distressed properties, commercial resi conversions, all that. And then I really just focused in on the one which for me was HMOs at the time. Very much sort of a numbers person, but really looked at the numbers on HMO and thought, actually, you know what, that's going to take me to where I want to be in a quick space of time. And I suppose that was the strategy is one thing, but then secondly, I'd never invested out, although I only had one or two at the time. I'd never invested or thought of investing outside of northwest London where I live. I've always thought anything north of Watford is just north and sort of thing. Typical London mindset. But then actually, though I studied in Birmingham, did my university degree there, I'd never thought of investing in like Birmingham, Manchester, Liverpool. I've just dismissed those. But through training, realised actually that you can invest in a lot more areas outside of London. So I invested 200 miles away from where I lived and started to build up a HMO portfolio just outside of Liverpool.
And obviously, being so far away with a full-time job, Raj, I'm guessing you weren't doing everything there yourself. So were you outsourcing some of the work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I still remember those early days. Actually, it was sort of 24. Actually, I can tell. I think it was 2013, 2014, because my son was born 2014. I remember that's when we sort of started getting into it. So it's 2013. Yeah, it's nearly 10 years ago now. But at that point, I realised it was either I've got 9 months now. I think not my wife's getting pregnant, not me, but 9 months till baby's born. Either I accelerate and knuckle down and get going, or I wait for the baby to be born and then I'll start. But I chose consciously decided actually I need to get going now. I wanted to get my first few up and running. So yes, I had to sort of lean into finding the sites first of all. But I think the first step was to focusing on an area, understand what your location is, and then make that your second home. So I was going I was working full time, I used to go up into the territory every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Obviously, learning this what I need, through the training and mentorship, I realised actually you need to smash out your viewings in a day. So I was doing 10, 15 viewings in a day. My time was precious.
So you can really ramp up, of those 15, you might not offer on every single one, but if you're offering on 12, 13 of them, you're doing that, 2, 3 days sort of consecutively, you're getting a lot of offers out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a mind shift for me, because I remember talking to obviously my mentor. I'm like, what if they all accept? You put 12 offers in. What if they all accept? I haven't got the money to.
Mm-hmm.
And the mentor said, well, that's a good problem to have, which in hindsight actually was. Because if you've got 15 offers at the price that you want, you can use those to then find investors on the back of it. So that was
find investors, source them on. There's always options, isn't there? But it all comes down to, as you say, kind of making sure it's at a price that works for you.
That's it, exactly. So, and obviously with HMOs, obviously that's it's really apparent that's quite a heavily regulated industry. But see, having done the training, I understood what it was back then. So the second part, when you have had an offer accepted, you had to find a builder to understood HMOs to make sure it's built to specification. My first one was a licensed HMO. I went in right into the deep end. But then again, finding a builder, you're following the process, following your peers, your mentor, what other people are saying at the time. But what I would do is when I got the property offer accepted, we'd done the architect drawings, got the planning approved. And then when I'd go and meet builders, I'd line up 5 builders in a day. I'd sit on site for the day and I'd literally carve out an hour for each builder. Probably 4 quoted for that particular job for the first one, of which of those 4, 1 will be high. I think 2 were high, so I shortlist down to 2. Then for those 2, I'd then go and meet those builders on their existing sites, see what projects they're doing. And to be honest, between the 2 I shortlisted, they're both equally as good.
And did they both have HMO experience? Because that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was one of the things I was looking for, because it's with HMOs, you've got FD30 doors, you've got intermittent strips, you've got interlinked fire alarms. All those things have to be done. So I wanted to make sure, and also because I'm 200 miles away, I needed to allow the builder to have experience. I didn't want to be trying to teach him that over.
Because even though what you knew what needed to be done, if you're not there on site every single day, and you're maybe you get up there in 2 weeks' time and they've done it all wrong, that's a lot of time that's going to be wasted on the project. It's probably extra expense coming out of your pocket for getting things right.
No, exactly that. So so both of them, I went on site to their existing project. Both happen to be HMOs. When you are in an area, everyone knows everyone. The builder will know the letting agent will know the architect will know the surveyor. So it's good to make sure you maintain your reputation. Even if it's a no for something this time, you never know what's around the corner in 6 months, a year. You might need to lean into somebody else, or things might change. And so I realized early on you need to maintain those relationships to progress, really.
And with HMOs, as our listeners might be aware, there's multiple different tenant types. So who was your kind of avatar? What was your kind of, what type of person lives in your HMOs?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I intentionally, obviously I was a student myself, and I knew, when I was in university, I was in a house with 10 people, and I knew what we were
party
doing.
House, that sounds like.
Yeah, it was crazy, So I don't know. I kind of thought, I don't want to go down the route of students. Who I came through with, that he went down the route of students, but I focused on working professionals, really. And that's partially because there wasn't a university. If you're going down to students, you need to have at least 2 or 3 universities to make it workable. But in the area I am, there were no universities. There was one college, but I focused on working professionals.
And I presume, again, that was all managed by letting agents. You kind of had a team that kind of vet those potential, tenants and sort of deal with all of that for you, being so far away as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's all about sort of setting up systems and processes. So I looked at, obviously my one down in London, I managed myself, but that one where you've got 5, 6, 8, 10 tenants, you need someone local, somebody eyes and ears. So I chose a local letting agent, which again, I interviewed 3 or 4 local letting agents. Every letting agent won't fit the bill. Your high street letting agent doesn't necessarily do HMOs. You do need a sort of HMO specialist letting agent to look after those. So I interviewed 2 or 3 and then sort of agreed on one and let them sort of, they're effectively, your letting agent is your partner, basically. You need to, they're the people you get into bed with. Builders, yes, for that 2 or 3 months when you do the renovation, and for future HMOs, absolutely. But letting agent are really the guys who are going to work with you, when you've got problems and stuff. They're the guys who are going to build a relationship for years, really. So
they're part of that long-term team as well.
Yeah, exactly that. That's it. So I treat my letting agent as I treat my sort of, that would be my local team in that area, but my national team includes sort of my accountant, my solicitor, and recently sort of planning consultant as well. But yeah, those are sort of, they necessarily need to be based in your local area, but.
And we often sort of say, HMOs are definitely one of the more complex areas of property investment. There are so many more moving parts, and each council's got their own different rules and regulations, which again makes it really difficult in order to kind of know exactly what you need to do. Did you find it quite a steep learning curve jumping straight into HMOs, or would have you rather have done some buy-to-lets first? Obviously, I know the cash flow was there, but the actual kind of that experience of developing your first HMO.
So I had a few sort of buy-to-lets down in London before I actually did the HMO. So that was very useful to become, if you're looking to get in, don't just chase the money. You need to sort of be comfortable, because really what you're doing is you're setting up a business. And people say, property is a get-rich scheme. It's not. You are just setting up a business, and you need to make sure that you are comfortable and knowing you've got to have that mindset shift and have that space in your mind to actually, look, I'm going to be doing this, but I'm moving into something new. And I probably on the HMOs, I did a fair few in a very, very short space of time. I mean, when I look back and think, well, how the hell we've got one running, your second one's on the go, had another one sort of going through
multiple
planning.
refurbs on the go, and the builders run one to the other, and
literally, I think we had 4 or 5 on the go simultaneously at various stages, and then I sort of, once that all done, I very quickly built up. You've got tenant pot about whatever, 30 or 40 tenants in a very short space of time. You're responsible for putting roof over their head. But then I had to take a sort of a year or so just to say, look, stop. You need to look at how you're going to manage this stuff and systemize that, because one thing, building up a portfolio quickly, but then you then also need to make sure you've got systems in place to manage that properly. And that's working with the local agent, where you try to systemize it as best you can. But then also with HMOs, it's not always sort of a sort of money in, money out. It's, sometimes you are leaving debt, you're leaving a bit of debt in the property, and you need to make sure that you can service that properly.
And was that angel investors' money? Did you do some flips along the way?
Yeah, so it was probably a bit of everything, really. I started out, as I mentioned, I had a buy-to-let there, so we released a bit of equity from one of those to get going with it, and that got me moving. Obviously, when you refinance, you go again. But then when you got multiple on the go, at the time, I also we use other sort of credit cards as well to finance some of the renovations. But then also I started to delve into sort of looking at angel investors. I've never had angel investment in my life, so that was all quite daunting. But I started to pick up a few small investors to pull that money in.
Yeah. And how receptive, obviously, when you're doing HMOs, you need to be working with the council. How receptive were your council for what you were creating? Because sometimes councils kind of give HMOs a bit of a bad rap. They say that they're, you can create antisocial behaviour and things like that. Were the council quite happy to work with you and pleased with what you were doing?
Yeah. So what I had done, which is probably slightly different to how other investors had done, I'd actually contacted my council before I'd even purchased a single property. So I'd contacted the head of planning, I contacted the head of building control, and the head of the HMO environmental health, basically. So I said, look, I'd like to set up a meeting with you. So I actually went to with the purpose of just meeting those 3 people, and I sat with them. I said, look, I'm a property investor down in London. I'm going to be investing in your area. I just want to say hello more than anything else. But more, I think the relationship I really built up with the HMO officer, Mike, and I said, look, we're coming into your area, and he was quite receptive to what I was trying to do. I said, look, I don't want to these are going to be high-end units. We will be doing something different. I've seen what the competition is in the area, and this will be sort of a step above. So he was quite receptive to the point where he said, look, once you've got your first one, before you even put spade in ground, I'll come on site. And he literally put together a specification really for me for the property. And that was really down to me sort of, well, not just me, obviously he was, but proactively building that
relationship and kind of asking for support and help before you kind of needed to kind of go into there and kind of go, oh, am I allowed this? So it's kind of, asking for support rather than asking for kind of permission.
Yeah, that's it. And he was very useful because one of the rooms, actually, I remember it clearly because we were trying to build a kitchen diner area. And that, I think the first one we did was a 5-bed licensed HMO. But for that, and I clearly remember it because it's 11, at the time it was 11 square meters. It might have changed now, but 11 square meters to get a kitchen diner. And mine, I think, was 10.5 or 10 square meters. So it was only, if I couldn't have got that room as a kitchen diner, I would have had to sacrifice one of the other rooms to run a 5-bed HMO. It would have been a 4-bed HMO, which, as we all know, the cash flow then it really takes a hit. So I got him on site and I said, look, this is my dilemma. How can we? He said, look, I can't take it. I think we were 1 meter off. He said, look, we need to at least get half a meter. I can't give sacrifice. So with the builder, we realised there was actually a chimney stack in the building. And he said, well, if we can get rid of that, then
get your half meter back.
Get your half meter. You're still, I think it was 10.5. He needed 11. He goes, if it get to 10.5, I'm happy with it. So that really helped me. And obviously that was just putting in a beam. So it cost me a little bit more. Yeah, well worth it. And I've still got that HMO, right? It cash flows really well. But that was working with them, the council, to make sure everything's done. Even, I think you might come on site halfway through. And when it came to sign off and giving me an issue certificate, it was more of a tick box exercise rather than sort of, will I get it, will I not? Because it's seen how we've done the build. You take photographs along the way.
Yeah.
And even to this day, we've been through probably a few times of renewing the HMO license. He kind of knows what he's dealing with.
So after your sort of the HMOs, I know you've been up to some bigger stuff more recently. Do you want to tell the listeners about that?
But then I started to get into sort of commercial to residential conversions as well. So we did a few of those where we're just taking properties with a commercial element and converting the uppers into residential. But one thing I've always wanted to do was to do a development down in London. So it was about 2019. We started to look at doing that in London, really. So it's northwest London. Really, GDP is about 2 million. But that was, and I was starting to get a bit more comfortable and confident in what I was doing. So that was a bit more, distressed seller in a pretty bad financial way, with a distressed property, there on a bridge, and they needed to get out very quickly. So we sort of worked out an arrangement with him, and we completed that development basically. So we've done that now. That was all done just before sort of COVID kicked in. We sold all those on the Help to Buy scheme. We've also done some new build bungalows up in Luton not too long ago, which are all, those are all done with 10-year structural warranties and stuff. But then also I've been doing quite a bit in the auctions where we've just been buying and selling. Actually, it's if you spoke to me sort of 2 or 3 years ago, I would have been like, just portfolio build, just hold everything, don't sell anything. But the last 2 or 3 years, we've done quite a lot in the auctions where we'll buy and sell, and actually seeing sort of lump sum cash sums come in your bank account is actually quite nice. It's nice to sell stuff, and it's a bit lumpy, but it's good when it comes off. It's really nice.
So just explain what you're doing on that side of things. So are you buying in an auction and then selling straight back into auction? Are you selling stuff that you've already owned in an auction? What is the actual play there?
Yeah, so what we do on the auctions, we really so I'm never in the room, but I'm always focusing on unsold lots in an auction, and and I buy after the auction basically. So obviously built up a few contacts now, and they're phoning me to say in the auctions they phone and say. So what I focus on the unsold lots after an auction's finished. it's a bit like something on eBay. Although it's a bigger scale, but you're anticipating that to sell. You want that to sell because you got those funds.
Mentally, you've already sold it by putting it into auction, haven't you?
Yeah, literally, you got your reserve. If it hits it, great. Sometimes it doesn't hit though, and if it doesn't hit, the mindset is on that day or the day after, that seller's wanting to sell it because they want to release that money to do whatever after. So if it hasn't sold, you kind of think, oh, you know what? I would have taken another 20 grand off or 10% off that asking price. So if you get in on that day or the day after and you put in a bit of a cheeky offer, you can actually land it. Now the trick is obviously, I'm not saying just go after every single one sold lot and put it, because
you have to know it's going to work. You need to know there's going to be profit at the back end. And
yeah, exactly. The deal needs to stack up, number one. But then obviously the most important thing is that legal pack and making sure you've had a solicitor review that, because there are some, there are crap that, it's an auction for a reason. Sometimes there can be a can of worms where the hasn't got red line drawing, or there's actually a problem with the title. But as long as you know what you're dealing with on that, then so my strategy is very much unsold lots, do it, and then I've had cases where I've just bought an auction, and then just sold it literally on the open market and done nothing to it. Most cases I'm doing some sort of renovation or development on it. So I buy it, renovate, sell. So but I'm really enjoying the auction stuff. And it's just nice to be able to sell stock, really. But I think once you've done a few different strategies, I'm sure you, like yourself, James, you get bored, you want to try something different,
mixing it up, doing different things.
Yeah, that's it. So but yeah, no, it's going well, and onwards and upwards, really. I'm getting more involved on the planning policy side of things now, so we're working closely with a planning consultant, and there's probably something to be said just to make focusing on that side of it. We're just planning gain, where you're just getting planning approval in place and then selling it with planning without doing the building. So
you're looking basically for like less work, still getting paid, and faster over sort of shorter time frames as well.
Yeah, exactly that. And
and despite being financially secure from property, having a very healthy income there, you also still choose to work, don't you?
Yeah, I still do some consulting. Yeah, I still do some consulting in my field. And that's, I did go into, I sort of reverted to property, went full time and financially free when I was about 5. But I think what I realized I missed, property people do say it can be a bit of a lonely journey, because you are very much just doing stuff on your own. Yes, you've got your builders and architects and all that stuff, but my friend circle, even when I was local, I think I only had one friend who'd made it at a very young age. He had a sort of Gallardo, Lamborghini Gallardo, but he's the only other guy sort of my age around locally. So you meet up with the odd coffee here or there, but then you kind of get bored of yourself a little bit. So I sort of thought, okay, well, look, let me. So I just set up a small consultancy sort of business, but it's very much because of the level of experience I've had in that 20 odd years in that field. I thought it'd be silly to waste it. So I'm still dabble in that.
Yeah.
But continue to do my property as well. And that's just a personal choice, really. Some people just go full time in property. And that's it. Don't look back. In my case, I didn't mind actually going back, and still very much enjoy. But it's very much on my terms now. So,
I said you've done some amazing things in property over the past 10 years. So massive congratulations to you for that. You also sort of help and support other people getting started as well now, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we're obviously. I think one thing I've realised over the years is it's one thing growing as yourself, but it's the more you give and the more you can help others, that allows you to grow as well. So so I do help others, specifically in HMOs now. So whether it be sort of someone's just starting out, or whatever, then I can certainly help. And we've got sort of we've got things in place now to take that forward, really. So, but I think by giving to others, it does help you to grow as a person, because when you see other people growing based on something you've said or you've done, or any support and guidance you can provide to them, it allows you to grow as well. So we do help others as well now.
Awesome. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, Raj, and speak to you or kind of get some supports, but for HMOs and things like that, how can they do that?
Yeah, so we've got a Facebook group. It's the HMO system is what it's called. So they can connect, they can join the group, and it's a strong community of supporting people in HMOs. So literally the HMO system on Facebook. That's the best way to get in touch. And obviously I'm on the group. I'm fairly active on there. So
perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure to speak to you and to catch up. And I'll be speaking to you soon at some point, I'm sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much, James, for having me. All the best.
Thanks, Raj.
Thank you.